Bundesding! Bundesding!
As part of this year's STAUNCH-O-WEEN, I wanted to share one of my favorite horror comedies with you all, as I've noticed a lot of people somehow miss this movie. They never really talk about it. I feel it's just so underrated. I'm talking the legendary 90s genre-bending cult classic that I often wonder is this what you would consider a forgotten film? Let me know down below. Staunch gang, stay tuned.
It broadcast programs no one had ever seen.
Wednesday at 9, don't miss an all-new episode of The Silencer of the Lambs.
Then one night, Roy and Helen Nabel got sucked in.
Stay Tuned tells the wacky tale of Roy Nabel, whose TV viewing habits are ruining his marriage until a strange salesman offers him an unbeatable offer on a new TV system, a system linked directly to hell. So via a giant backyard satellite dish in the backyard, things get pretty wacky. Soon, Roy and his estranged wife, Helen, must survive the Hellvision TV waves in a variety of deadly and hilarious set pieces, all the while rediscovering the love they have for each other. Stay Tuned is a film that deals with some heavy elements, I ain't gonna lie, but it never really leaves its family-friendly bubble for too long at least. Although I will say, I caught a lot more humor, let's say, watching this as an adult. Straight up, oh man, I hate to say it, but I relate to Roy Nabel a bit too much here, if I'm being honest. And while there is some science fiction elements as well, there's a lot of horror happening here. So all you horror fans, I think if you haven't seen this one, you will really like it. It's fairly whimsical at the same time though. Think like Mom and Dad Save the World. You ever seen that flick? Think that movie meets something like, I don't know, Pleasantville or something. Although the writers Jim Jiniwin and Tom Parker originally planned it to be more like Evil Dead meets Monty Python, which yeah, I get that too. I mean, there's some pretty horrific elements here, and it lends to the satanic side of things quite a bit. I mean, Hellvision programming here is literally for the devil himself.
3 Men and Rosemary's Baby.
Wade's Underworld.
The Silencer of the Lambs.
And he has people working in like this hell TV station. It's pretty badass, and they even seem to be part of some sick game there as well. They're all kind of doomed to lose. Satan, man, he's a tricky guy, and he employs time limits for the contestants. So if Roy and Helen do well in their entrapment, they get to actually come back out of the satellite and go back to normal life. So it's like there's some stakes here. It makes the movie fun, especially in the third act. The third act really goes balls to the wall. Although I gotta say, the rules for this whole movie and the satellite and whatnot, they're a little off, I gotta say. But, I mean, that's how the supposed devil gets his kicks here. 666 channels of unique programming where Satan uses actual gluttons for television as pawns in all of the crazy programming. And there's a lot of it. We're going to get to it. But I got to say, Satan sounds like a fun guy. To be more fair in the tone and scope of everything, this may be a bit much, but think of Stay Tuned as a mix of UHF, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Mom and Dad Save the World, and maybe The Running Man? Jeez, this is a weird movie, huh? The legendary John Ritter plays Roy Nabel, and well, he kind of sucks. I mean, as a character, as the character, as Roy Nabel. I mean, John Ritter, he's the shit. He's a legend, one of my favorite actors of all time. But, you know, in the start of the film, he's a real schlub, you know. He's like, he seems like a straight arrow, but then he seemingly drinks too much. There's a lot of empty beer bottles around the TV and whatnot. He just kind of plops down in front of the TV with some beers when he has this fine-ass wife basically begging him for attention, you know. He's just totally unaware, and apparently he's gone on the deep end. He started chugging mustard as well. I don't know what the deal's with that. And it's strange. I mean, I guess, you know, hey, it is the 90s, but somehow this drunk couch potato can somehow afford a 2-story sitcom house. But the dynamic between the two adults here, Helen and Roy, well, that will come back into the plot and whatnot, and largely be a compass for the rest of the film. which snuck up on me upon the first viewing. And again, going back to the main cast, I mean, they weren't the studio's first choice for Helen and Roy, but it's clever that for this being a TV parody movie that they hired two classic TV actors as co-star. Pam Dauber, of course, who plays Helen here, was in Mork and Mindy. I grew up with that show as well, so I recognized her. But aside from her, there's such a 90s cast. We got Eugene Levy, Captain Lou Albano. And that being said, Jeffrey Jones is here too. I'll be talking very minimally about that guy. Speaking solely on his acting career, though, I guess I can say I miss the days when he was allowed to play a villain, because he was really good at it. Anyways, they just don't make them like they used to, And Stay Tuned is a perfect example of that. It's such a quality film, and it's brief too, and it's only like an hour and a half from what I remember, and it all works so perfectly. It doesn't feel rushed or anything. And again, that third act goes balls to the wall, and everything's so perfect. The setups, the set designs, like the game shows in this feel and look like game shows. The wrestling looks like wrestling, and cartoons, they look like goddamn cartoons. And the cartoon segment, I mean, that's probably the coolest part. Growing up as a kid, that's the part I always looked forward to. And the film is actually quite hip, if you will. It's obvious that this was the MTV generation, hence the Salt and Pepper cameo. But also, the entire soundtrack was all hip hop and rap. Yeah, a movie starring John Ritter has a soundtrack with the likes of X-Clan, Kool Moe Dee, and Black Sheep. Too awesome. And again, going back to the rules, like what is going on with this satellite dish? It's a little strange. Basically, they're trading souls for a high-tech TV service. This requires a signature. But then once the customer is captured, the satellite just kind of stays up and sucks in any random asshole that walks in front of it. It even steals bikes and someone's dog. The satellite dish is actually an imposing villain, though, in the film, if I'm being honest. He's a much better villain than Jeffrey Jones. And ironically, Stay Tuned was originally titled Terror Vision, which of course is another absolutely wacky film involving a satellite dish. I don't know, man. Even TerrorVision, I'd argue, is a horror comedy, so it's kind of weird. I'm glad they didn't stick with that title. It's strange to think that Stay Tuned isn't the only film out there in this genre, though, right? It's pretty weird. They had to have known that there was like a bizarre connection there, and they were like building the satellite dish horror genre. We need some more of those. You guys want to hear me rant about TerrorVision? Let me know down in the comments. And yeah, Stay Tuned always did kind of freak me out as a kid. Anytime something's presented so clean and yet so dangerous, that's a vibe that gets under my skin in a comedy. Seriously, there are some real horror elements at play here. The wrestling scene always kind of freaked me out, if I'm being honest. I mean, you can get ran over here. You can get eaten by a robot cat or by wild wolves. You can get ran over by a train and blown up at the same time. I mean, Jeffrey Jones, ugh! But there's more than meets the eye with this wacky cult classic, and eventually the film plays out as a kind of psycho couples therapy. If we're talking the best gags here, I mean, the Chuck Jones inspired animation sequence. Mwah, chef's kiss.
Oh my God, we're cartoons.
Actually, Chuck Jones oversaw that segment himself. I think that's why it works so well. It's probably the coolest part of the film, hands down. And there's many other segments, though, that are absolutely stand out. I mean, Dwayne's Underworld, that was a big hit back in the day. And the wrestling segment, I've already said how much I love that one. But my personal favorite, little portion of the film here is Roy Nabel, Private Dick. That particular part of the film is just so jam-packed with jokes, and it's so spot-on satire. I want to see a full film based nothing on that, just that weird noir, you know what I mean? It feels very real. Whenever I was a kid, and when cable was big, and you're flipping through the channels, there was always one of those movies on. The film's final act plays out like a long action-packed finale featuring everything from Star Trek to Sergio Leone westerns to Salt and Pepper. I mean, goddamn, that's so weird, right? It's like here everything is satire. All the programming on Hellvision is somehow like an evil pun. Dwayne's Underworld, Driving Over Miss Daisy, My Three Sons of Bitches. Yet when it comes to music videos, they just play regular old Salt and Pepper music videos. I mean, it's a strange implication that I guess Satan is a big fan of Salt and Pepper. I mean, I guess I always thought they were a little spooky.
You got to start me up. Come down. The S to the A.
And oddly enough, once Hellvision has been defeated by Roy and Helen, well, they get to go back home. And the satellite dish just kind of sinks back into hell, I guess. Seriously, what are the 8 simple rules here? I've always found Stay Tuned a Halloween-worthy film. I mean, there's just so much black comedy horror undertone all throughout. Stay Tuned has aged like Mary Steenburgen and still holds up spectacularly in 2024, even though it completely flopped upon release. As recently as 2020, there were talks of a TV adaptation for AMC, something that excited me to no end whenever the news broke, and then proceeded to go nowhere, but I'm still waiting. I, for one, would much rather prefer a direct sequel, though. There's just so much more in this universe, and in fact, the film ends, setting up a sequel, so why not? Or, maybe a story about the inner workings of Hell TV or, Hellvision. I mean, that would be the shit. There's just so many different options and different takes on the material here. Go for it. And while Roy Nabel isn't my favorite character from John Ritter, because I absolutely loved him in Sling Blade, Stay Tuned will always be my all-time favorite John Ritter movie. Again, rest in peace, legend.
Where have you been?
Have you seen Stay Tuned? Let me know what you thought down below. I'm going to be covering more comedy movies next month. This is just a little taste, and I do think this is a great horror little inspired film as well. So check out my comedy reviews right up there, or this other video where I talk about the history of Carnival of Souls and its abysmal remake. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Stay tuned for more spooky action, guys. It's STAUNCH-O-WEEN.
It's really incredible. It's a extravaganza.